Hello, everyone, and welcome in this podcast, In Shape to Grow, the podcast who bring health into your business plan. In today's episode, I'm very happy to introduce you to Jacob Mark, a peak performance coach that I met recently in Ottawa. I discovered him by looking after a Wim Hof workshop, and 6 months ago I had the chance to participate to his workshop, and I really discovered someone with an amazing quality of acceptation and non-judgment. It's very interesting to see how Jacob is using his expertise as a firefighter, as a certified Wim Hof coach, but also many other certifications. So let's see what Jacob can teach you during this very inspiring interview. Because when I asked him about how to manage stress, one of his specialty, he really gave us a very interesting tool. So as usual, if you have questions, do not hesitate to contact Jacob directly or to comment below this video or with this interview. Before the next episode, make sure you take care of yourself, and I will be happy to see you next week. Bye-bye. Hello, Jacob. How are you today?
Good. How's it going, David?
I'm doing very good. I'm very happy to have you in this podcast because when I discovered your profile and your services, your coaching services, I really connect with your message and your value, and that's how I discovered your profile. I came in Ottawa a year and a half ago, and I was looking for a certified Wim Hof coach to have my
Yeah.
first workshop, and I jump into your community, and I follow you for a few months, and last August I did my first workshop. So I'm very happy about this podcast. So welcome to
Yeah,
the show, Jacob.
that's great, man. Thanks. Obviously, thanks for having me here. Conversations like this light me up. Like being able to talk about all these things, people, like-minded people, and people who have great questions it's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure, and I will invite the audience to follow you on Instagram because your Instagram is both uh, artistic, because I never say that, but if I wasn't a coach, I would be a photographer, and I really appreciate very nice pictures. And
Yeah.
you offer a lot of reflection, so I'm sure people will connect with your values and with your message after this interview. So before diving into your coaching service and profession, do you mind if we come back to your career first?
Sure. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, good. So you were born and raised in Nova Scotia, where nature and ocean are a big part of your childhood. So
Oh,
how is it to grow up in the north of Canada? I mean, I'm from Belgium. I have no clue. What was your childhood like?
yeah. So Nova Scotia, well, the East Coast in general is known to be super laid back. Anybody who visits there knows that everybody is super friendly. People that you don't even know will wave to you just on the street to say hi.
Okay.
Everybody's like that. Generally speaking. So growing up there was peaceful, um, and you don't really get. I feel like it was more connected to nature because you don't really have. I mean, Halifax is the biggest city, but other than that, I didn't live in Halifax, but other than that, you're surrounded by either ocean or nature, and just nice people. So it was a really connected and peaceful way to grow up, I would say.
So, yeah, yeah. We see on your Instagram that you connect with this place, and the connections you still have today with nature. So we're going to talk about this later. So
I,
after in 2002 around, I think you are in high school and you play basketball, and I guess you were a very active teenager.
yeah, for sure. And also the other thing I would just say, I don't want to paint too much of a rosy picture about growing up on the East Coast, because one of the things, when you don't have the distractions of the big city and lots of things going on, it's easy for kids to get in trouble too, to look for mischief and for those types of things. So growing up on the East Coast in a small town also had its challenges. And trying to find social outlets and things, and we can get into that if it comes up in the conversation. But it wasn't all just peace, nature, and tranquility when I was growing up there. But yeah, definitely heavily involved in sports, soccer, basketball. I loved being an athlete, and so to speak, I was a big fish in a small pond in the East Coast. So then later on, when I went to university, now I was a small fish in a big pond, and it was extremely intimidating. So I did something, I kind of cowered away. I stopped playing a lot of competitive sports because it was just too much for me coming from, although I knew I had the skills, it was just very intimidating for me at the time. I didn't have the skills to level up in that kind of way. I never had that opportunity to growing up to do that. So.
Okay, and I saw on your biography that you went in France. Is it before university or after?
It was during. So my third year of university, I did a full year exchange in Grenoble.
Yes. So did you like it?
Yeah, it was. So, like my life growing up, a lot of lessons. And now when I reflect back, I probably, not that I shouldn't have, but I probably wasn't the ideal candidate to be going to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do with life. I didn't know where I was going. I wasn't even sure what I was interested in. So I kind of just chose to go because all my friends were going. There was pressure, all these things. And so one of the main reasons I took the certain program I did at university was because I knew on my third year, I'd be able to go to France for a year.
Nice.
And it was, obviously France is beautiful, but again, I was young. I wasn't in the mindset that I was, appreciative of all the beauty that France had. I was more in the mindset of, I'm a university student wanting to party. So now reflecting back, the lessons are all coming now. But while I was there, it was a different kind of lifestyle than I would have now if I were to go. Let's say that.
Yeah, of course. So you want to say that now you are learning from the experience you did a few years ago because of your self-reflections today?
Yeah, 100%. Like, anything in life, hindsight is always 20/20 vision. You can always see things a lot more clearly when you look back. And if you had the information then that you do now, we probably would have made different choices. But growing up, like, although I had a great childhood, and like I said, Nova Scotia was great to grow up in, I used to live very heavily for validation from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So making choices, trying to get people, making whatever choices so people would like me. What a lot of kids do, really. But now looking back, I can see how unaware I was, how kind of, asleep I was, how there wasn't much substance. I wasn't truly living for myself. All those things it's a massive reflection for me to look back. And now I can see that, I don't want to live that way anymore. So we kind of, you kind of have to go through some stuff to get to a point where you can see things more clearly, I would say.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you said because I don't know you for a long time. So basically, we saw each other in real life, unfortunately once, but I follow your work for more than a year now. But what I really appreciate in your message and when we meet you in real life, it's the way you're like very calm, very open, and I don't see the guy who is looking for appreciation or anything. And it's very something that when I did the first workshop of Wim Hof with you, I was like feeling really, because I'm more like introvert too, but I was really feeling very easily welcome and accepted, and you make people feeling, I think, really welcome, and that's something I don't see even in workshops or with coaches and everything. It's very a big characteristic of your personality, and it's amazing. But based on what you say, it was not always like this.
No, definitely not. So um, until we have certain tools, we basically hide the shadows that we live with. The parts about ourselves that we don't like, we hide them away. And in doing so, we're not really living out of integrity, because we're not being our true selves. We're being this version of ourselves that we think other people want us to be. So until we fully start to accept, the not negative, but those shadow parts of ourselves, the parts that maybe controlled our life or that we're not totally happy with, or maybe the things that we did that we're not proud of, until we do that, it's hard to live in integrity. And I'm not saying that, I'm a saint now, or that I am totally like a perfect human. That's not even close to the truth. I mean, if anybody has expectations of me, I always say I will let you down every time, because I'm always making mistakes, and I'm trying to just do my best. But coming to a place where you can accept who you are, and once you do that, you can just accept other people for whatever and whoever they are, and that kind of sense of judgment kind of leaves a little bit, and it makes people feel more welcome.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I try to carry in everything I do, because the more open I can be, it gives people permission in a way to be open themselves. They're like, wow, that's we're allowed to talk about the stuff that we're not proud of. We're allowed to own up to our shit. Like, great. So that's kind of the energy I try to bring. Doesn't always work, but it is what I try anyway.
From my experience, I mean, what you said is what we can read in many books, but it's not always what we experience, even with people teaching it. And again, from my experience, even if you do your best, actually, there's a lot of efficiency on what you do, because that's really what we feel. I mean, from my only experience with your workshop. So during your college years, you had some self-destructive behavior, like partying, and like we all did, I guess, almost. Did you remember the moment you wanted to switch to another lifestyle, or was it coming slowly?
Well, kind of like what I talk about in my workshop too. Sometimes for a lot of people, it takes having a reflection or a mirror. And what serves as a mirror for a lot of us are other people. So for example, we will judge other people, we will see other people, and we don't really realize it. But anytime we see something in somebody else that triggers us or we don't like, oftentimes it's something within ourselves we actually don't like. And, we because we see it and we recognize it. And so it feels uncomfortable, and then we just basically judge them to take the pressure off ourselves. But anyway, so it really was when I met my current partner, Jess. She is this woman who mindfully was well before her years. She reached this place of understanding, or deeper understanding, I should say, of life, in her late teens, where maybe I reached that place in my late 20s. And so when I met her, it was a huge trigger, because I was living basically just working any job during the week just so I could party on the weekend. I didn't have any substance. My friends were doing the same thing. I didn't know that there was more meaning to life. This is just kind of how it was. And in doing so, I didn't know how much I was hurting. I had no idea, because I had never looked at it. And basically the alcohol, the drugs, everything was just a distraction from looking at myself. And so meeting her and being with her, it was the first kick in the butt that I was like, wow, like there is more to life than what I'm doing here. And it wasn't easy. Like, I was angry, I was pissed, I didn't want to have to change. But it was kind of like pulling teeth for her. I'm surprised. Honestly, sometimes I say, she doesn't like when I say this. I'm surprised she's still here some of the time. But I'm happy she is. But anyway, it was definitely difficult. And it was that reflection that was the first thing that set me on this path of changing my behaviors and learning more about myself.
Oh, and what was your first action then? So it was the first kick in your butt, and what was the first action you really did to change that?
The first thing was I set a goal, because I was just kind of working whatever jobs. It was kind of to set a goal that, okay, I'm going to be a firefighter, and that's what I want to do. So I want to follow this career path. And mind you, I still was in the frame of mind that if I achieve this goal, I'll be happy forever, which doesn't work that way. But anyway, so that was the first thing I did, was to set that goal. And on top of that, I just started looking at more, you know, personal development type
Mm-hmm.
topics. So whether it was watching some videos on YouTube of Tony Robbins or whatever, just like trying to go down that personal development path, just as a beginner would.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so those were the first things. Yeah, definitely setting the goal and just looking at more of the motivational speaker type people, and just learning some lessons from them. Yeah.
Yeah, so for some people, listening motivational speakers is just something like, you do it, and you do it every day, and it doesn't change because you need to take actions. But actually, I do the same, and sometimes one word or one sentence can switch, and you can go a little bit forward. So we have many tools today to
Yeah.
grow up. And on your career, so you started as a firefighter around 2015, and after that you met Tony Robbins. I saw on your Instagram a very nice pictures, and also Wim Hof a few or the year after, and you become certified in the Wim Hof methods.
Yeah.
Um, you did also other certifications. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit of your background on that?
Yeah. Just to talk about the motivational, type of audio that we might listen to or the videos. To me, what that really served is it just provides the motivation to do more, to do other things, right? So it kind of just gave me that fire to want to do the work because,
Mm.
without, to me, to receive anything and to ask anything of yourself or the universe or whatever you want to call it, there needs to be some sort of input. You have to give something to get something. And that will look different for everybody. And so that motivation was the motivation to actually do the work to see some results for me. And then, like you said, yeah, I started actually going to these seminars. So like the Tony Robbins, where I had a chance to meet him, wanting to become certified in Wim Hof method. That was for many different reasons, health, for career, for a lot of different reasons I did that. I also became certified in neuro-linguistic programming and life coaching.
Mm-hmm.
When I was taught by John Grinder. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but there were two people who, I guess, invented neuro-linguistic programming, him and Richard Bandler. And they both kind of have their own schools of thought now, but John Grinder was Tony Robbins' first coach.
Okay.
He was the one who kind of set Tony on the path. And then Tony took it to a whole other area. So anyway, I learned from John Grinder, and that's where I got my neuro-linguistic programming and life coaching certification. And yeah, that was pretty much it for me, other than I also became certified in the Oxygen Advantage. So I quickly, through the Wim Hof method and through my understanding of stress as being a firefighter and everything else I know about stress, I know how important breath work is. And so the Oxygen Advantage is a great method and tool. They offer great tools for improving our dysfunctional breathing, and which then can improve your health, your stress, your immune, like all these other things, right? So I learned that from Patrick McEwen himself,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess you can kind of see the trend. I really like getting the information from the horse's mouth. I like going to the source because it doesn't, it's kind of like playing the game telephone. Have you ever played the game telephone, where you kind of sit in a
Yeah.
circle,
Right.
one person will say a word and then see if it's the same? So you can pick up great things from people who have learned from other people. But if I want to truly invest in something and to teach it to somebody, I like going to the source. And then I also like getting views from other people as well. But I definitely want at least to try it from the source. And so that's what I did with all my different certifications. Yeah.
Yes, and you mentioned as a firefighter, working on your breathing
Yeah.
was something that changed your life, maybe. But
Mhm.
you were a firefighter before doing all these certifications.
Yeah.
What was the main uh, advantage you
Yeah.
took from working? Because of course I have no clue about what a firefighter life or experience can be,
Mhm.
and I think it's fascinating. We are so many people on earth, but nobody has the same experience. And
Yeah.
and I have another guest, English guest, also at the beginning of this podcast, who
Mhm.
was a former firefighter. After
Okay.
35 years, he
Wow.
retires now. But I think it's everybody knows what is a firefighter, but we have
Yeah.
no clue about the daily experience. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not always happy ending. And so, what did you had, what kind of advantage did you feel after doing the breath work?
Yeah. Learning about the role. So, we breathe like 20,000 times a day, right? And our breath can literally shift us more into either a sympathetic or parasympathetic state. It can change a lot of physiological things about us. We change our biochemistry with our breath. It can do so much. And it's so overlooked because it's one of those things that we do without even thinking about it. And once, you recognize the power of the breath, then you start thinking, okay, if my breath can regulate, it can do all these amazing things, how can I use it to shift in a stressful situation? And it's not only that, it's also about improving my lung capacity and all these other things to do my job. It really helped that way. But just in terms of stress, it's just understanding the direct involvement of breath in stress and what that does. Because when we're stressed, our breath is super fast. We have adrenaline, and all these things happen. But if we can learn to relax our breath, and then how to do that, there's many different methods. You can just simply even just have a prolonged exhalation, which will activate your vagus nerve and help you to feel more calm. Doing these types of things, if we had any kind of call, you can think more clearly. Because when you're in a stressful state, so say we get a call, anything basically to do with kids or, even a fire, whatever it is, your adrenaline's, going through the roof because you're creating all these different scenarios in your head about what's happening because you can't see it yet. You're only anticipating what it's going to be. It could be nothing. It could be a very simple thing, but you're making all these things up in your head. And when you're very narrow-minded when you're stressed because you become hyper-focused. And so you don't have the ability to think as clearly and as globally as you would if you're calm. And so if you have the ability to slow down your breath to get more in a parasympathetic state, then you can start thinking rationally and more reasonably about what you're going into. And so when I arrive on scene, if I'm more, at the call, I should say, and I'm more in a relaxed state, I'm not saying I'm like Buddha when I show up, but if I'm more in a relaxed state, I can see things. I'm not so narrow-minded, narrow-focused. I can see more things. I can do my job more effectively. I can help my team more. A lot of different things in terms of just breath work has so many advantages in that sense.
Yeah, and this is in terms of stress management.
Yeah.
Did your partner uh, saw your progression in terms of how you were in the daily activities with the breath work also? So outside the stress, uh,
Yeah. She definitely did. And she definitely does because, if I'm going to work and if I have anticipation all the time and if I'm stressed all the time, it's not only affecting my daily life, it's affecting my sleep, and then it's also affecting my home life. And so as you begin to, solve these little things in your life, the cookie starts to crumble and all those things don't start affecting your home life as much. You're kinder at home. You don't start resorting to coffee all the time and eating all these things to feel good. You can be good on your own. All these things are really going to make your home life a lot more pleasant. And especially, for a lot of people, if you add kids into the mix, people who have, they're firefighters and they have kids at home and try to balance everything. I don't have kids, so I can't even imagine what that would be like. And so I think the message is there are simple tools that we can use, natural tools, to really help relieve a lot of the stress at work and at home life. Because at the end of the day, what I find stressful in terms of firefighting, for somebody else, it could just be dealing with a boss who is not nice, or it's different for everybody. There's no rule to say that degrees of stress have to be the same among people. And situations are going to change. Somebody loses their job, might be stressful for one person, not, it's different. So just learning these tools and actually appreciating them, I think is important.
yeah, and as you mentioned, it's so easy to disturb our breathing pattern. But on the other side, once you know the technique, it doesn't cost anything but time, dedication. And so everybody can learn it, any age, any condition.
Yeah.
So that's a very powerful tool, and we will talk about your program at the end of this podcast. But it's,
Yeah,
I
sure.
think, something that it's very important as a coach, as a trainer. I remember that breathing was not at all my favorite topic in university, either
Yeah.
in Belgium or in Australia. I didn't like to learn breathing because I said I don't need breathing. I just need to have, a big heart and big muscles and be efficient.
Yeah.
But breathing is, I discovered it a few years ago. That's very amazing what we can achieve with a better breathing pattern. Um, so, Jacob, you did a lot of certifications on top of your firefighter job. So
Mhm.
today you are a peak coach, and your mission, I really like, your mission is to free people for their own suffering. That's
Yeah.
what you share today with your life experience and your certification. But may I ask you a private questions? Because I
Yeah.
saw on your Instagram that you told us about your grandfather's story. Is it somewhere related to what he experienced in his life, that today suffering is something that you really are in empathy with?
That's a good question. You know, I would say we're shaped by, well, we are a combination of everything we experience, right? Everything we eat and everything we experience makes us, on top of probably some other things. And so, knowing what he's been through, so just so people know, he served in the Polish army during World War II. He was Jewish, and he lost his entire family in Auschwitz. So when
Mm.
he came back out of the war, he was trying to find his relatives, and he found out they all had passed away. And so, realizing that he had the ability in that situation to not get down too much on himself. He had a family. I'm only here because obviously he found a wife, had a family, and continued
Yeah.
with life, right? So in a sense, I'm not saying he didn't suffer at all, but he didn't suffer. He didn't cause the suffering to the degree where he let it control his entire life. And so I think about somebody like him, and then it really had me thinking about, where is suffering coming from? Is it other people doing something to us, or is it us experiencing something and how we're internalizing it? Right? And it's a very touchy subject to go on,
Mm.
because you start getting into unethical things and really terrible things that happen in terms of, the sex trade or all these different areas in life. But when I talk about helping people to overcome their self-inflicted suffering, I don't go down the, basically what I'm talking about is your day-to-day living, and how much of life that we are just blaming others and we're not taking responsibility for. There is a degree of that for everybody. Some people are definitely dealt really terrible hands, and there's some really cruel people in the world. But there's a degree for every single person of, we are causing more suffering than is necessary, or that we should be in a given situation. And should is a loose word. I shouldn't say should. Basically, that we're causing some of our own suffering.
Mm.
And so it's that proportion, whatever that is for everybody. I'm not one to judge what that is for you or for anyone else, but it's to try to give the tools and the empowerment for whatever that is for you, to stop that self-inflicted suffering, to try to lessen the blow of what you're feeling. And that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and I was really inspired by this post you share, because what you share with us is that anybody can from now work on how they live the stress,
Yeah.
and this is something I maybe a little bit clumsy with my capacity of expressing everything in English comparing to French,
Yeah.
but that's one of my challenge this year. It's to share with people from the English speaking background, because I think there's so many things to share, and part of my community speak English, but I know
Mhm.
that I still need to work on my accent and my vocabulary, and sometimes it's hard to share these thinking and these emotions. But saying that when we meet you, we can really feel that we are welcome and there's no judgment. And that's
Mhm.
what you just said. You don't judge, say, oh, that's wrong, or that's good, or that's a lot of suffering. Whatever the person has experience. But what you
Yeah.
say is that even if you, like your grandfather, had a very hard time, you can decide now I'm going to cope with stress in a different way
Yeah.
and get more happy and happier, or with more performance, or
Right.
more and joyful life, right?
Yeah. 100%. That's
Okay.
right.
So, oops, I have a few words to share with you now, and I'm going to ask you to choose one of these three words that I pick on your Instagram. It's not
Okay.
it's not an exam, but I just want to have your topic, your ID and your advice, not your advice, but a few words about these topics. So, if
Sure.
I ask you to choose between cold, community, and values, what would you share and what would you say about it?
Only pick one of them.
Yeah.
I would say I'll talk about cold. So basically, for me, because we're talking about stress, is the reason I chose cold. And there's two huge parts about cold that are important to me. One is if we're trying to deal with stress, then just like, say you're a basketball player and you want to prepare for the game. Okay, you practice in as much of a real life scenario as you can to be ready for the actual game. So if somebody is, cold has many benefits, but in terms of stress, if somebody is having a hard time dealing with stress, one of the, not the best, but a very good way of seeing how you can regulate in a stressful environment is going into the cold. Because when you're deliberately putting yourself in a stressful environment, and with some coaching, you can see how you go from fast breath, very panicked, to being very calm. Then you start to see, okay, wow, I can do this. So when stress comes up in my own life, I have that ability to calm down because I've just proven it to myself in one of the most stressful environments there is, which is 0 degree ice water, with just your shorts on. So that's why I love cold. And the second thing is that I love about the cold that I'll say about it is one thing I've recognized as humans is we've totally disconnected ourselves from Mother Nature. We feel like we are the exception to the rule. Everything else outside in the natural world is part of Mother Nature, but we are, the supreme being, and we are not part of that. So, symbolically, from the shoes that we wear, we're separating ourselves from the earth all the time,
Right.
to being insulated in our homes and just totally, unless it's ideal conditions outside, we don't want to be in nature. And there's tons of benefits from grounding, so barefoot on the
Right.
ground, to just being outside in fresh air, right? And we've kind of lost touch with that connection to the Mother Nature. Even just from the sense, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of climate change or anything like that, but just in terms of exploiting the earth, we will take whatever we want from the earth without most of the time thinking of even giving anything back. And so that's just one of the biggest examples of how we've shown that we are separate from Mother Nature, because it shows that we feel like we can take what we want without having any repercussions of what we're taking. And so the cold is one of the ways where we can embrace Mother Nature as a teacher.
Yeah.
And try to have that reconnection, because the cold, it is Mother Nature. Ice water, cold temperatures, all this is created by Mother Nature. You can go into some cold environments that are created by machine or whatever else, but I'm talking strictly, my favorite way is going outside, being in the cold with Mother Nature. And that's where the most fundamental and foundational lessons I've ever learned about that connection with Mother Nature have been.
Yeah, and you as a coach, I remember the workshop. Your goal is to make sure that the person is in a safe environment. You guide them, but I saw many people when I was on your workshop with different experience and expectation, or fear about the cold. You just there, and we can see it on your Instagram with the pictures when your partner take the pictures. We can see that you are with the person. You make sure that they feel safe, and they do the work, because I mean, nobody pushed me on the ice to go and experience the cold, but you were there, and it's amazing how, as you mentioned, we can use this this success
Yeah.
about the cold, and use it afterwards in our daily life.
Yeah, and you know what? So one of the things about anything that I offer, and I think this goes for any really good coach out there. Obviously, we don't work with anybody unless they make that choice. You know, you have to make the choice for yourself first. So, in my life coaching practice, if somebody is forced to come from a spouse or a friend, I don't work with them. It has to come from them. If it's a suggestion from a spouse and the person I can tell really wants to be there, I work with them. But the choice has to be 100% fundamentally, they want to make that decision to be there. And so it's the same thing with the cold. It's optional at every workshop. Obviously, I'm not going to force anybody to go in, but as soon as they're in, I'm still not doing anything for them. I'm a guide, and that's what any coach is. It's just a guide. All of the work, 100% of the work comes from the person. They can receive my guidance and they can follow their breath and calm themselves down and listen to the guidance I'm giving. But all of the work is with them. And that's why it's so empowering, because when they get out of the ice, they realize, I just did that. It wasn't Jacob, it wasn't anybody else. I really just did that. And so even if I think about, personally, the best example would be again, coming back to firefighting. So not only calming down my breath, but one of the things I do in the back of the fire truck is I put myself mentally into an ice bath, because I can remember when it used to be super stressful for me and I had that ability to calm down, and I mentally go into an ice bath in the truck. And then when I'm in the truck, I could realize, wow, I can calm down in any situation. And that, along with my breath, is the most powerful thing I can do. And that's the same thing if somebody is stressed at work or in their relationship or wherever, they can do the same thing. Wow. And that's what it's all about.
Thanks a lot for sharing this experience, Jacob. Thanks a lot. Another one, between freedom, willpower, and vulnerability.
Freedom, willpower. I'll choose vulnerability. So vulnerability, to me, like, people have a kind of especially men, I would say, have a negative connotation with vulnerability. Yeah. It's seen as weakness. It's seen as not being as much of a man as we believe it is. And really that's one of the main reasons why people have a hard time going into the cold. As you said in the workshop, it's a super safe environment. They're safe, they can come inside, everything is good. So what is there to be afraid of, right? You can get in, you can get out as soon as you want. So what is it that's afraid? And it's being uncomfortable, and it's being out of control, and it's that part of being vulnerable to something else. They think, people believe before they get into the cold that they're going to be in pain, they won't be able to withstand it, they're going to be uncomfortable. So it all comes back to vulnerability. And it's that ability to release control and to just genuinely be yourself and allow whatever to come up and it's kind of tied to freedom. It's absolutely liberating, right? And it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign for men being any less of a man. It's literally just owning every part of yourself and walking this life in full integrity, which is, I make mistakes every day, like I said, but one of the things that comes up constantly that you'll see in my Instagram or anywhere that I offer is coming from integrity.
Yep.
And if I make a mistake out of integrity, I will 100% of the time always try to resolve it and rectify it, because if we aren't acting out of integrity, what are we doing? We're just walking around like a robot.
Yeah, and in your missions, you mentioned taking people from their own suffering and not being yourself or vulnerable to the world is some kind of suffering, because we all ourselves all the time. That takes a lot of energy. I mean, no wonder why people are tired, because they always try to be something or be someone, and nobody can really express, and that's why I really like to share the stories and the career of the guest I'm inviting, because it's a new job for me. It's the 25th episode or something, and it always amazes me. Some guests I know better, but it's always inspiring.
Yeah.
And some people are not successful at all yet, and some other have already a big career. But all stories are very inspiring, and I want to show that, as you mentioned, being vulnerable, being in a growing mindset, and trying to correct and work on ourselves is very important, and decrease the level of suffering.
Yeah, and you know, we have these things in life that we coin these terms like burnout and midlife crisis. You know, these things happen when we're not listening to our bodies, right?
Mm.
And we're not doing what we truly want to be doing. We're doing things either because we want to advance in our career, even if it's not truly what we feel like we should be doing, or we're making all these choices in terms of what we believe. You know, traditionally we've been told we have to go to university or to school, we have to have a partner, a family, buy a house, follow this trajectory, and eventually someone has that life crisis at some point where they're like, wow, what did I do for myself in my life?
Mm.
And that's also about being vulnerable, because if you can't listen to yourself and express how you truly feel, these things are going to happen at some point or another. My life crisis happened at 20, 24, 23, whatever. For some people it's 40, some people it's 80, whatever it is, but at some point it's going to catch up to you for
Yeah,
anybody.
that's never too late. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always a lot of, and especially today we have so many tools. And you
Yeah.
mentioned, I mean, breathing and the code are tools. Once you know them, it's free. I mean, you can. The only thing you need is a little bit of discipline and time, and let the body go by itself, and just repeat day after day, small piece of breathing exercise or cold exposure. Because of course, diving into a river by 0 degree, it looks like peak performance. But we can start in our shower. I mean, by just switching the temperature slowly, so it's progressive for everyone. So, may I now ask you, Jacob, as a peak performance coach, what are your own routine to keep the work, and how you can inspire us with your routine?
Yeah, so, that's a great question. So one of the things I'm trying to do, so historically I've been somebody who has been very regimented, and that works very well for me. So I'm trying to find that sweet spot where I can set up a routine and rituals, but if it doesn't come to me naturally, I let it go, because I used to force it. So that's the
Hmm.
one thing I want to say for anybody is, if we were to do all the things that we should be doing in terms of rituals, it would literally take us 24 hours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All the meditation, all the breath
Yeah.
work, all these different things, grounding, all, you know, everything. It would take forever. And so
Thank you
it's
for that.
really, yeah, it's really about losing that judgment and having
Mm.
compassion for ourselves, and just really not doing things just to check it off a list, but doing it because it's what you feel that you should be doing. And again, this is just coming back to listening to your body and acting integrity with what you want to be doing. And there's a very also, it's an important distinction to make between just being lazy and not wanting to do something and being
Yeah.
guided by our addictions and impulses, and actually choosing what we want to be doing. So people will have to make that distinction for themselves, but it's a very important one, because it's very easy um, to neglect
Mm.
ourselves based on our addictions, and to just say, oh, you know what, my body feels like watching Netflix, that's what I'm going to do. That's great sometimes, but if we're wanting to do rituals and do things that are good for us, we have to really get on a deeper connection with ourselves. And so leading into my rituals, basically the main things I do every morning for sure, when I wake up, I do my breath work, Wim Hof breathing, and then I do manifestation, meditation. 100% pretty much every morning I do that, because that's what I'm lit up to do that in the morning. I feel like doing that. I have missed days. There's been days where I've woken up and I've gone for a cold exposure first thing, because that's what I felt like doing that day. And by most of the time, so I'll just say generally speaking, I wake up and do that. And that, you know, for me, that's it for the morning. Because after I do that manifestation, I'm ready to get to work and I'm lit up to start helping people.
Mhm.
And so that's what I do. Every night, I do more journaling and manifestation. And I also have cold exposure during the day. And that just depends on when I love doing it with the sunset, because getting outside in terms of when the sun is rising and when the sun is setting helps to regulate your circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
And so that's why I kind of try to keep my cold exposure for sunset. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know. There's not, you know, it's not a huge list of rituals to keep myself at this peak performance. It's really just maintaining that mindfulness, maintaining that manifestation. When I say that, it's first, quote unquote, keeping my mind on the prize. What am I trying to develop in my life, and just being mindful and reminding myself of that every day. And it's done wonders for me just to live my life this way.
And what would you give as advice to find this sweet spot between what your body needs and the lazy part of it? Do you have like, okay, if I'm feeling lazy more than 3 days, I need to see what's happening, or if it takes a week, you let it go?
One of the, well, I'd say two real things that I ask myself before I do these types of things, like watching Netflix or whatever, playing a video game or whatever. I don't really play video games, but just examples. Before I do those types of things, I ask myself two things. What is my intention behind this? And do I have a choice? Do I feel like I have a choice right now? I'd actually probably ask myself do I have a choice first? So first I would ask myself, do I have a choice? Okay, if I don't feel like I have a choice, then I know there's something deeper going on, and that this is something, if I want to experience more depth in my life, I have to look at this. So you have to make that choice at that point, because it's now become an addiction and it's controlling your life in a sense.
Wow.
So if I feel like I have to watch Netflix every single night and I don't really have a choice around that, then that could be an issue. And so part of the work I do is trying to help people see they have more choices available to them than what they might see in this moment. The second thing is, what's my intention? So I'm going to watch Netflix. Okay, I feel like I cannot watch Netflix, so I can be honest with myself. I have a choice behind this. Now, why am I watching it? Is it because I want to distract myself from what's going on in my life? Is it because I just feel like, I've done so much mindfulness work, I've worked on my own things, I just want to have some time for me to, not have to be turned on to the world? So ask yourself what the intention is, because if your intention is, for example, like I said, I just want to do this because I'm just tired of having to, talk to my partner because we're fighting all the time, so I'm doing this to distract myself. Well, then there's another issue. So it comes down to being truthful with yourself and asking those two questions.
Yeah.
For me.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, because it's very inspiring. And what would you answer to the person who say, okay, I can answer these questions, but I need help? I mean, because sometimes people say, yes, but I don't know what to do and how to start. I know I have to, but I don't know where to start. What would be your advice? And that's maybe taking a little bit of time on my last questions about what would you recommend to people who feel stressed out for the last 2 years. So it's on the same level. Sometimes we need help. Do you still have a coach yourself, or do you work for yourself on these where you feel that, okay, there I have a choice, I don't want to do it, but there I don't know how to go to the next level?
Yeah, so there's a few things, and I'll try to remember everything I want to say. The first thing being, I know it's just like running through my head as I'm speaking. So the first thing I want to say is, it's very important, as much as I say it, to not have judgment for yourself. So you can set a goal that I'm not going to watch Netflix every night. Okay, maybe I'll watch it 2 nights. Now, if 1 week you watch it 4 nights, instead of getting down on oneself, the best thing to do is to realize that tomorrow's a new day, and you can do it again. You have tomorrow, to set it straight and to start again. That's always an option. So lose the judgment. There's no failure in this kind of thing. It's just you're learning from, just like everything you've done in life, like we say, you're learning as you go. Now, the second thing is, I would start small. People want to have the way that we live our lives, we want immediate satisfaction and gratification. We can have every answer to any question at our fingertips. We can do everything from the comfort center. Everything is just immediate right now. But humans we aren't created that way to have immediate results all the time, although we have come to expect that. And so there's a disconnect there. So the best thing to do to kind of build up that confidence that you have the ability to make different choices, to achieve these things, to make changes in your life, is to start small. Say, okay, I keep coming back to Netflix as an easy one, because how many hours do we spend watching Netflix? A lot as a society. So I'm going to only watch it, I watch it right now 5 times a week. I'm only going to watch it 4 times a week. try that for a couple weeks and just use that extra night to do something different, right? So always just start small, because then as you start small, it literally builds on itself. I didn't go from 0 to where I am now, at the snap of a finger. It took
Of
some
course.
time.
Yeah.
So definitely start small. And the last thing, kind of coming back to your question, one of the best things anybody can do for themselves is hire a life coach. Sometimes it's just like, on our own, it feels like the mountain is insurmountable. And so it takes a little bit of guidance and a little bit of help to get there. That's where the community comes in, and that we can all help each other, is that you don't have to do it alone, which is the beauty of our society here where we live, right? In Canada, especially, you don't have to do anything alone. There's somebody that can help you all the time. And so I do still have a life coach. I don't meet with him every week like I used to, but I do have him for times where I feel like I need that extra help. So I take sessions here and there. And it might look different. Maybe it's not a life coach. Maybe it's a hypnotherapist for somebody or whatever. Try what works for you. But having some sort of help from somebody who is qualified in a sense to help you is very important. And a life coach it's done wonders in my life. So.
Yeah, I really believe on what you said. Like a few weeks ago, I interviewed a very well-known podcaster from France, and she was talking about the dream team. We all need a dream team, and as you mentioned, it can be a hypnotherapist, it can be an osteopath, it can be a life coach, and depending on how you evolve in your own life, you're going to say, okay, now I need someone to give me tools on this area, and then you receive the tools, and then you take actions. You need to practice it. So it's a good transition to what you offer as a peak coach, peak performance coach. So if people connect with your interview today, where they can find you easily, and I have a few questions about some of your program. I mean, there's one next week, the ALCHEMIZING. Can you tell it? Can you pronounce it for me?
Yeah, alchemizing stress.
Alchemizing stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it still on? There's a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Your first question. Sorry, what was it again?
the transition. I was just doing the transitions to what you're offering. So we can talk about this program, and then we can talk about where people can find you.
Yeah, so alchemizing stress has been something that's been in the works for quite some time for me. It's coming back to the helping people to stop their self-inflicted suffering. And I'm very passionate about it. It's taking everything from my career as a firefighter, everything I've learned from all my coaches, and also obviously trying to keep it super affordable right now because of what we've been through for the last 2 years. It's been a lot for a lot of people. And financially, mentally, everything. So right now I have a 2-for-1. So anybody that signs up, the 6-session course is only $200. Anybody that signs up can invite anybody else they want for free. I just want to help as many people with this. And basically what it is we've kind of lost sight of what we don't even, for one, we don't really recognize what stress is in our lives. A lot of us will live with this stress every day and eventually it just becomes normal.
Yeah.
It's how we live. And our stress response had an intention from when we were created as humans. This stress response that we have, it's a beneficial thing and it's there for us. We can use it as an ally. We can use it as a friend, so to speak. It has its purpose. But when we start living with this stress response every day, it's not how we were intended to live as humans. And that's where we started having that self-inflicted suffering come up in a lot of the negative health effects, the chronic inflammation, the chronic stress, and then leads to more serious health issues. And so my intention with this really is to transform the stress response that we have now, and kind of that's where alchemizing comes in, and kind of understand what it is and transform it back to what it was intended to be. And that's just offering people more choices, more, I don't like using the control, but they have more input into how they live their lives. So that's what it's all about.
So it's group sessions and it's two hours once a week, that's right?
Yeah, so it's every 2 weeks for a total of 6 sessions, and each session is 2 hours, where it's going to be over Zoom, and they will be recorded. So, I mean, if somebody can't make a session, they'll get the recording after, and then there'll be a Telegram or a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or something. I haven't decided yet, to make that kind of community for anybody, because you're going to have homework. There's going to be things to do
Yeah.
between sessions. So to have that community where you can ask questions, you can share your experiences, what's working, what's not, kind of thing.
Yeah, great. It looks very interesting and inspiring. Thanks a lot, Jacob.
Yeah.
Two other things that you're offering. There's a first mini-series free course that people can subscribe to from your website.
Yeah. So yeah, again, part of what understanding everybody has a different current situation, trying to offer things for free, low cost, and then obviously there's going to be things that are higher cost, trying to meet people where they are, to try to help as many people as I can. So the mini video series is literally just 5 videos trying to encompass some different things that I've learned. Dysfunctional breathing, sleep was part of it. And then also, obviously, I'm a Wim Hof method and Oxygen Advantage coach. So talking about the differences of those, talking about rituals. So that's totally free to just kind of, when I started again, listening to the motivational videos, this is again, another entry point for people to get into the world of all of this kind of thing.
So people can find it where?
On my website. So www.jacobmark.com.
Yep.
And at the top toolbar, you'll see my offerings, and one of them says free. And so it's going to be there. Yeah, and there's a cold guide there. So if anybody wants to experience the cold, it's kind of a beginner's guide to experiencing the cold. And then there's going to be a new one coming up at the end of March. I'm doing a master class on manifestation. So that'll be free, 2 hour. There's a lot to go over. So probably a 2 hour free master class on that.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And the last one is the Limitless Retreat in Yukon next October. It looks like a nice adventure. Can you talk a few minutes about this retreat?
Sure. I'll try not to take up too much time. So yeah, Limitless Retreats. So first I'll just start with basically the name Limitless, where it comes from is, and in a teaching I received from Sadhguru. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yep.
He's a very known guru from India, obviously. And one of the things he teaches is that everybody is working on this. We're trying to become limitless or boundless, so to speak. So as humans, we do it in increments. We think that if, like for me, if I became a firefighter and then I buy a house and all these things, I'm going to be happy forever. So we're trying to reach this place of being limitless as humans, but we do it in small increments. And so what the retreat is really about, where Limitless comes in, is giving the power to the person to realize that you don't need any of those external things to have that sense of being limitless, that you can achieve whatever you want, that you are an absolute human. And as Sadhguru says again, being human is super. There's no superhuman. Just being human is super. And we try to instill all of that in the retreat.
Wow.
So it's going to be an expedition in the Yukon, under the Northern Lights, really great, where we're going to use, but we're going to teach the mindfulness, the power of placebo, the Wim Hof method, Oxygen Advantage, yoga, all these different teachings to try to, as much as we can efficiently and effectively give in 7 days at this retreat is the idea.
Wow, and we can find all these informations and details on your website. If people wants to follow you on the daily life, so you have Instagram, official Jacob Mark, right?
Yeah.
And on a Facebook page also. I will share all the details on the comment of this video. So thank you very much, Jacob, for your vulnerability and all the sharings. It was very inspiring for me. Even if I've been on your workshop and you talk a little bit about your career and your tools, and I really had a very nice memory of this first workshop. You're gonna have an advanced workshop this 13 of
February.
February. The podcast will be released after this workshop, but you also offer regularly Wim Hof workshop for beginners and for advanced offers for the people who know this expression. But I really advise and recommend your workshop in Ottawa area, because of course for Wim Hof you can do it online, but your optimized stress program is online, and you offer a few services online. Do you offer peak performance coaching online too?
Yeah, for anything I do, I prefer doing it in person.
Yeah,
but I do When I can't, I offer things online. So life coaching, peak performance coaching, I offer it in person. And if that doesn't suit some people, we would do it over Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Good.
much, Jacob, for your time. To everyone, I hope you enjoy this interview as I did. It's a lot of inspiration. So if you want to connect with Jacob, I will share all his details on the comment section of this video. And by the next English version episode of this podcast, I'm wishing you a lot of great stuff and take care. Till next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, David. See ya.